Super FM, your number one family lifestyle talk and urban radio station, and pleasure is mine to have you. So welcome to The Issue, and at this time, every weekday, we look at important issues. We look at, topics and topical matters within the state, around the country, as they affect us, here in Port Harcourt, here in River State, there in Akwa Ibom State, where you may be residing, in Bayelsa, in Abia State, in Imo State, wherever it is that you're listening to us from. Stuff that you can totally relate with because they affect you. Joining me today to talk about a matter that is now on the lips of every single person, especially those in Port Harcourt, but generally around the country right now. It's something that is on the lips of everyone, on the minds of people, even people who do not quite know how to respond just yet. They think about it. And it's the issue of stampedes generally, But let me introduce my guest on the program today, Barrister Henry Ekine. Always a pleasure to have you. This is our second time having a conversation on the issue. Barrister Henry Ekine is a National Legal Advisor, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, CDHR. He's a legal practitioner and he's a public affairs analyst. The pleasure is mine to have you today, sir.
Thank you very much, Obi. It's also my pleasure to be with you this morning.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right, so let's shoot straight. We're pressed for time. It's already 12 minutes past 9 o'clock. So look at this, sir. There are all kinds of reactions when we see issues of stampede, In 2019, I believe, there was a campaign rally that took place at the Amir Simaka Stadium. And some women who were there, who came to, see what was happening, there was a trigger. Obviously, there's always a trigger to these things, right? But by the time that campaign ended, there were well over 10 women who were recorded dead. I'm not exactly sure of the number, but I know that in the reports, there were more than 10 people who were confirmed dead at that event. And we've seen it happen. It happens at different times, right? Over the weekend, it was a faith-based organization's call for people to come and shop for free, right? And this was a charity venture, a philanthropic gesture, right? We've seen that happen. Sometimes it's not for philanthropy, but oftentimes also, it happens that people are gathered to come and benefit something. And then there is that stampede. There are all kinds of reasons people have given. Some people have said, well, if you have been called to come and take something, why not comport yourself properly? Some other people have made all kinds of response to say, okay, well, proper crowd management should be done and all of that. But when you look at this other angle of years of suffering, scarcity, and deprivation, let me paint a very common thing that we see. Someone is given a contract to, say, print 1,000 T-shirts and face caps. They do less. Or they print 1,000 and they keep some for themselves and for their own people who probably did not have any business, who were not there at the time, who do not have any business with the entire event, but they save some and bring only a limited number. And then they share and share and share, and it finishes. And you see many people who are supposed to be beneficiaries of that thing don't get it. It continues to happen, it continues to happen, and it continues to happen, and we see that before you know, people start to jostle for the few, for the limited. You go to a filling station, for instance, before you know, fuel has finished. So you find people fighting in filling stations because for them, why doesn't it get to my turn? So it gives rise to that thought that if perhaps government lives up to their responsibility, no doubt you will never eradicate, you will never come to a society where you will not find people who are in need. But it will not be so many. So when there is a call like this, right, you will find that not so many people would come because this thing is something that, I mean, when you say calm down, it will get to your turn, they actually believe that it will get to your turn. I'd like you to respond, please, because I see that you have a lot you want to say to this effect.
Yes, okay. It's unfortunate, really. First, my condolence to those whose lives are lost avoidably. It's pathetic. It's unfortunate. May their souls rest in peace. And let me also say this, that the life of every citizen is important. And of course, lives of all persons in any part of this country really matter. And so my heart goes out to the relatives and survivors of those who have departed in this very avoidable circumstance. Having said that, you've actually had made reference to some of the causes of instances of stampede. Yes, some of those could be, again, both sides, even part of the organizers, and then part of the blame will go to those who have come as beneficiaries of those services. And then again, ultimately, will not go back to the remote cause of this kind of desperation for people to avail themselves at such gatherings, really, for those kind of handouts or reach outs to people. Now, all of these, for me, will really place the responsibility on both society and then, of course, on government. Absolutely, especially particularly in this circumstance where it is clear and then it's in the public that it's a reach out by some faith-based organization on charity basis to probably show concern to the welfare of citizens. Then it directly brings in government. For some who may even wonder why would the government be linked to this, it's not government that is organizing, it's not government that was responsible for organizing the crowd. But look at what the subject really is. It's about reaching out to citizens who are probably disadvantaged or impoverished or are in short supply of their basic needs, and then, of course, are seeking to enhance their welfare. Then you find out that the primary responsibility of government is actually to enhance the welfare of citizens. So any society where you find this kind of occurrence, and then considering the great proportion of citizens in a place, in a society, that are in need of this very basic existence of life, then you will link it to the failure of government in really meeting that primary responsibility of government to ensuring the welfare of citizens. Like I said, even organizing, recall, I think an agency of government sometime in Abuja, and that was for recruitment. And then because of the high level of unemployment, the numbers of applicants were so much, I think Ministry of Interior also, and then there was a stampede and people also lost their lives when a public agency, a government agency was to organize some recruitment screening or so. So all of these have records, and then I think it's becoming a problem and a concern in society. But apparently is part of the failures of society, particularly of government, to enhance the welfare of citizens. I even just this morning, when you gave us the notice that we're going to talk on this, I was in a public taxi, public cab really, and then coming on, and then the discussion was on, and then somebody was like, "Oh, he would have been there because he needed those things that were to be shared there." And I'd also had a discussion with my wife, and then she was like, they share food items, they share clothing, and probably second-handed clothing and all that. If people understand these things, if people are sufficiently provided with the basic necessities of life, especially those areas that government is responsible to so do, maybe employment, ease of access to maybe housing. Many wouldn't know that housing is a right. Today, in the third generation of human rights, housing is a right. Access to food is a right. Access to economic opportunities and to harness economic opportunities is a right. And these are not alien, they are not strange rights. They are also rights that are recognized in this country, except that they are made not to be justiciable. Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has guaranteed, has ensured directing the policies of government and the programs of government towards providing these basic welfare needs. That is housing, access to food, access to be able to harness economic opportunities, and to, as much as possible, reduce or minimize poverty, deprivation, and lack. And then, but these things have continually been plaguing people and citizens of this country. And again, in River State, which is not different. And this is why that even right as we speak, even after the report has been about 30 or 31, as the case may be, may have lost their lives, if you have a repeat of that kind of gathering anywhere else, people will troop in.
Absolutely.
People will go there. They wouldn't mind the stampedes.
Hmm.
So that's the reality that confronts Nigerians, and then particularly in areas where the situation is worse hit. And one of such parts of this country is River State. People wouldn't understand that there's a whole disturbing level of poverty, deprivation, lack of access to housing, access to food, access to economic opportunities, no employment, and of course, even those who are in employment have challenges really, and then those who probably have retired from public services have no means of survival. So all of these failures of government will actually exacerbate and heighten the struggle for survival by citizens, and then it could expose them to this kind of risks and dangers of life. Those who have passed on, now they've gone, but they actually have gone there for means of survival.
Absolutely.
That ordinarily the opportunities would have in society would have enabled them to probably even fend for themselves.
And you know, quite like what happened on Saturday, unfortunately, but every time you see such calls made, you would find that people would even travel long distances to attend such events. You know, and there are some people who have said, well, when you come for a thing like this, you're supposed to comport yourself in an orderly manner. But does one really know how to respond until they're desperate? I mean, is there a way? Is there any excuse, really? Is there any justification for the man who is desperate? You know, and as I said in the introduction, who has seen many years of not enough, of simple...
See, if you haven't been hungry, really, and desperately so, especially even when those who are related to you, I mean, filial relationship, if you haven't been a parent who has not got anything to eat, and then your children are wailing and crying at home, and they've got nothing to eat, then you will not understand the desperation that would be in a human being who will hear that they are sharing food stuff or food item anywhere, and then having the hope that that's the last hope, that if he or she is able to struggle away to break through the walls or any barrier whatsoever, but access those facilities and food items, and then go home and be able to feed their children, then you wouldn't appreciate how desperate those individuals who converge in those kind of places would be. The fact is that a hungry man, they say, is a very desperate man, not just the cliche that a hungry man is an angry man.
Right.
He may not necessarily be angry, but also may be desperate for survival. Yes. So when there is poverty and lack and deprivation and hunger in society, you have all sorts of desperation, even in this kind of converging in such places, or even taking out arms and then going to criminality. And that's why the world over is also seeing that the high level of poverty and deprivation, and then lack and, of course, exclusion from economic opportunities across the globe is also one of the causes of insecurity. Even if some other causes may be, but it's one of those, because that person who struggles for survival can easily and very susceptible, can easily give in to even tendencies of crime for survival.
Right.
That's not to justify crime, but sometimes some persons get into crime for survival. Some get into insecurity for survival. Then some get into this kind of desperation to go to any length for survival. See, the whole essence of a man is life. And that's why the right to life under Section 33 of the Constitution is expansive. It's expansive onto the right to have access to food, access to good health care, access to clean environment. So that even when the Constitution provides and guarantees under Section 33 of the Constitution, right to life is so expansive. So because if you are not alive, what's the essence of man? What's...
Hello, Barsa Henry. Hello, sir. All right, we're having a bit of a network challenge, but I'll try and restore connection and we'll continue with this conversation. All right, Miss Barrister Henry, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All
So I
right.
was saying that that's the extent to which citizens or human beings can actually be really desperate.
Hmm.
So you can excuse the determination for persons to rush to those kind of places. But like I said even earlier, and I agree with you, it does not justify why you shouldn't be able to even consider the risk of your life and
Right.
also be able to be a bit circumspect,
Hmm.
be careful a bit, and then not a bit, be reasonably careful
Hmm.
and circumspect, and then be really relatively also be security conscious. And then I don't dare go to anywhere that there's that kind of struggling and scrambling for space for opportunities,
But then
because
again,
anything can happen.
but then, again,
Anything.
again, I understand where you're coming from. But when you have moved past a certain point in life, because certain basic needs are not your needs, you have somehow by hard work, by whatever, by luck or whatever, by grace, God, you've
Yes.
moved past a certain point in life. There are certain places you will not get to or go
Yeah.
to look for certain things. But how could you know? It's like we've already said, when someone is hungry, we saw people go with like 2 or 3 children,
Yeah.
in the hope that just in case they are giving on individual basis, me I go collect,
Yes.
my picking go take, or the people where I carry come. Because that sometimes you say, oh, give me for my sister that is outside, and they will say, oh, no, let the person, don't give the people who are not around. So people will go with as many people as they can from their own family with the hope that it's reach them, it will get to them individually. But this is one thought I want to put out there as well, and I want to ask you. There are some people who say, and who have assumed, and I have heard it many times said, that the money in Nigeria is enough to go round, is enough for everybody, but it's sitting in the pockets and accounts of a very, very, very small
Individuals.
minority.
Absolutely.
And recently we heard about the accountant general who was being probed, who is being probed by the EFCC over 80 billion naira fraud. And only today we're seeing in the headlines that another 90 billion naira has been discovered also linked to him. Now, this is 170 billion naira. There are many other people who are facing different crimes, who have been accused by the EFCC, by the federal government, by the state government. Now, look at all these monies sitting in the accounts of people, monies that were given to them to actually offer services to the state, to the country, positions that they occupy to render service to the country, but they misused those opportunities and took advantage of them to fill their pockets at the expense of the Nigerian man who is supposed to get certain needs met by the government. Now, there are some people who have said that if all these government officials, politicians, House of Representatives, members, and all those other senators and everybody who have means, who have what it takes, if they would occasionally, not even occasionally, but from time to time, reach out to indigents in their constituencies, in their immediate environments, people who can reach out, do it often enough. Take one person from one family, from one indigent home, and help that person stand, so that when they stand, they can take up another person to help them stand. That if these things happen often enough, whenever there is a philanthropic call, whether by a faith-based organization or by some non-governmental, non-religious organization, you will not have as many people gather at the same time, in the same place, at the expense of their lives and safety. Do
Yeah.
you?
Yes, that's the point. Obi, if I may come in here, you've just made the point. One indicator of failure of governments to respond to the welfare needs of citizens is even when such calls are made, and then you imagine the number of residents in that city that turn out to those kind of places. So if I were in government, for instance, in a state, and then I have a report that these kind of calls are made by non-governmentals, faith-based, concerned to what extent I should be concerned to what extent people are impoverished, and then the need for attention to the welfare of citizens. And let me tell you one thing, and I think any opportunity I have, I'll say this so that those who are listening would understand. Now, do you know that we feed all of those in public offices. I mean, the governors, deputy governor, the president, the vice president, and even the legislators. We feed them. Now, but we don't have food. And how do we feed them? In every government house in this country, there is a responsibility of government, and of course, from your money and my money, and from whatever is actually supposed to be some contribution by every one of us. And then you find that they are being fed, the education of their children is taken care of by all of us. Where we house them, the vehicles they drive around everywhere in convoy, long convoys, they are all our vehicles, not their vehicles, because it's our money. We take care of their health needs and health care. Those individuals themselves are members of their immediate family, meaning that in a typical state, we feed the governor. Forget the pride and whatever they say. For the period you are governor, we are feeding you. We take care of your health care. We provide transportation for you. We provide housing for you and your wife and your immediate family, even to some extent, your extended family, because you have a right for even your mother to live with you in government house. And then the catering department or section in government house takes care of the feeding of those people. The health facility, we call it government house clinic also, is for them. And then it's our money. Now, but when they neglect the welfare of the citizens who are contributing, um,